Our generation has a very difficult time marrying science and faith, and it breaks my heart. Because a lot of people think either you have to have faith in God or you have to believe the facts of science. And it's leaving our generation in a quandary, so much so that religious affiliation is going down in America today, but affinity for prayer statistically is as high as ever. So people want God, they want spirituality, but they don't want religion. And in Europe, this is a crisis in the West, religious affiliation is less than 10%. Now, it's about 10%, maybe a little less than 10%, right around there. So if you're running for president and your campaign, you're getting less than 10% approval rating and less than 10% of the votes, then your campaign is on life support. So religion is on life support. And that's why one of my favorite historical characters in all of Days of Eldon, Halcyon Days of Yore, was C.S. Lewis. Because he said, God on the dock, let's show that science is not opposed to God, but actually works together in a symbiotic relationship with God. So again, tonight will be a different kind of message that I'm gonna reach out to this generation, reach out to us to show us how the Bible is a smart book. And you don't have to sacrifice knowledge or sacrifice your mind to love God. Just the opposite. Jesus said, love the Lord your God with all your mind. So that's what we're gonna do tonight. So buckle up and we're gonna go science tonight. I know this is a different message, but hang in there with me and we'll hit it hard, okay? The Bible is a smart book. Watch this. Genesis 1:1. The history of creation is the title of this chapter. In the beginning, everybody say, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Okay, so in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. This is called, by Bible scholars, the Trinity of Trinities. Everybody please say Trinity of Trinities. Now what that means is this verse, the very first verse of the Bible, contains within itself, inherently and intrinsically, the three fundamental laws of physics: time, space, and matter. Everybody say time, space, and matter. So in the beginning is a measurement of time. God created the heavens. The heavens is speaking of outer space, the heavens, space. And thirdly, the earth. The earth speaks of matter. Time, space, and matter. Notice, this is what Psalm 146, verse 5 and 6 was saying. God made the heavens, the earth, the sea, and all that is in them. Now watch this. The Hebrew verb create is only used of divine and never of human activity. So when you see that verb create in Genesis 1:1, it is never used in the Bible of humans creating something. No human has ever created ex nihilo, something out of nothing. Nobody but God, John 1, can create something bara out of nothing. All we can do is reassemble pre-existing particles and reform vibrations to make songs, but no human has ever invented something out of nothing. It has never happened in the history of mankind. John Foreman, one of my favorite songwriters, was once asked how he wrote a song, what was the process? And he said, I don't write songs, I dig up artifacts. Because every great songwriter knows that you're not inventing something out of nothing, you are discovering something that was already there. So in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, time, space, and matter. But notice, this is a trinity, three properties in one verse that contains within each property three subsets. So in the beginning, a measurement of time. How many properties is time made up of? Three. Time is made up of three properties: past, present, and future. Everybody say past, present, and future. Okay, so time, our first property in Genesis 1:1, past, present, future. In the beginning, God created the heavens. The heavens speaks of space. Space is made up of three properties. What are those three primary properties? Those three elementary properties? Height, width, and depth. Everybody say height, width, and depth. Then it says God created the earth. The earth speaks of matter. Matter is made up of three properties: solid. Everybody say solid. Guess the next two: liquid and gas, solid, liquid, gas. So time, space, matter, past, present, future, height, width, depth, solid, liquid, gas, a trinity of trinities, all the fundamental laws of physics summed up by Moses in Genesis 1:1 from a book that's thousands of years old. Come on. He's like, we're not messing around. The first verse, we're not all treble, no bass. We're not skimming off the top. We're plumbing deeps. Not even messing around here. So God is this creator who made everything so miraculously. And one of the ways that we find hope in our generation today is in the realization that this earth, the heavens, the sea that God made, it is filled with his miracles and fingerprints all around us if we will only see it. I mentioned a few weeks ago how the ancient rabbis taught that when Moses saw the burning bush, it was burning all the while. He just happened to be the one who noticed it. How many people passed by the burning bush but were texting, had their phone down, or had their phone in their hand, their head down? How many people were just like on the road talking, they weren't paying attention? Moses was able to see the burning bush. So too, if you go through life with eyes to see, you will discover miraculous burning bushes all around you. You will discover miracles all around you if you have the eyes to see. Are you tracking with me? So let me talk about some of these miracles that God put in the heavens and the earth. Everything that God made, matter, is made up of atoms. That's what you have to understand. Everything in existence is made up of atoms. And atoms weren't discovered until incredibly recently in human history. So we're in a new age scientifically, a new epoch scientifically, I should say, where we have discovered atoms in the 1800s, the Legos of the universe that even Greek philosophers thousands of years ago were trying to find when we developed the microscope. Now, atoms make up everything. I always like to say, don't trust atoms. They make up everything, okay? You're tracking. So atoms make up everything. Atoms are very, very small. They're so small that your brain can't bend itself around this idea of how dinky an atom is. So an atom is in size to a golf ball as a golf ball is in size to planet Earth. So an atom is in size to a golf ball as a golf ball is in size to planet Earth, proportionally. So if you compare a golf ball to planet Earth, an atom is in size to a golf ball as a golf ball is in size proportionally to planet Earth. That's how small it is. But watch this. An atom is made up of 3 major subatomic particles. You say, what is a subatomic particle? Well, think of the word subatom. It's anything that is smaller than an atom, a particle that is smaller than an atom. Now, the 3 major subatomic particles that go on to make up the atom, let's see how many of you know this. What are they? Protons, neutrons, and electrons. The protons and neutrons make up the nucleus of the atom, and electrons are on the outside of the atom. Now, if you blew up an atom to the size of a stadium, the nucleus would be the size of a grain of rice. That's how small the nucleus is. If you blew up an atom to the size of a stadium, its nucleus would be the size of a grain of rice. Drum roll, please. If you blew up an atom to the size of a stadium, its nucleus would be the size of a grain of rice, but the grain of rice would be heavier and weigh more than the atom itself, than the stadium itself. So, this is true. If you blow up an atom the size of a stadium, its nucleus would be the size of a grain of rice, but the grain of rice would weigh more than the stadium. The grain of rice would be heavier than the stadium. It gets crazier. You've been taught in school, in elementary school or whatever, middle school, I don't know. I wasn't paying attention in any of it. But in the center of the atom, there are protons and neutrons, and what does the electron do? We're told it orbits the nucleus of the atom, similarly to how our planets orbit the sun. The only problem is that is a good elementary way of thinking about it, but what the electrons are doing are actually much more bizarre than that. The electrons are not doing a continuous orbit around the nucleus. What an electron is doing is, watch this. It leaps from point A to point B without traveling the distance in between. This is called quantum leap. Everybody say quantum leap. Have you ever heard that phrase, quantum leap? It's when an electron is jumping from, I love how Jessica, you're like, nope. So it's when it leaps from point A to point B without traveling the distance in between, right? So people say, when are we gonna teleport? It's like, you're behind the curve. Electrons have been doing it for a long time. They're the beam me up Scotty teleportation particles. That's what I would have called it if I discovered it, but they said nobody would believe us. Let's just call it quantum leaps. Scientific jargon sounds much more justifiable. So they leap from point A to point B without traveling distance in between. So they teleport. Furthermore, watch this. There are electrons that do not face the front when you turn them 360 degrees. That's what we're used to with our Newtonian physics. There are electrons that in order to face the front, you have to turn them 360 degrees 2 times. You say that doesn't make any sense. Just watch, it gets nuttier. A single electron can do 47,000 laps around a 4-mile tunnel in 1 second. 47,000 laps around a 4-mile tunnel in a single second. Furthermore, these electrons, protons, and neutrons, as tiny as they are, they're not the smallest parts of the atom. We've now found over 150 identifiable subatomic particles that make up atoms. So watch. These subatomic particles we've discovered can exist in 2 places at the same time. 2 places at the same time. Furthermore, they pop into existence out of nowhere. They pop into existence out of nowhere. They can be everywhere and nowhere simultaneously as a cloud of possibility. And your observing of a subatomic particle can actually bring it into existence by observing it. In fact, there's this theory that the whole universe, which is made of atoms, could not exist unless there's an ever-present observer watching the far reaches of space. So how can the far reaches of space exist if these subatomic particles don't exist unless they're observed? Well, that's a really good quantum apology and argument for the existence of God. C.S. Lewis said, you don't know what the universe is doing when you turn your back to it. God is this ever-present observer that's what the book of Hebrews says. All things are naked and exposed before his eyes, like he sees everything. Furthermore, this is where it gets even nuttier. Watch this. There's a thing called communication where subatomic particles will talk to each other and demonstrate awareness of each other with no signal. So if I need to talk to you, I need a sound wave or I need a cell phone signal. But these subatomic particles demonstrate awareness of each other with no linkage, no way of communicating, no signal. This is called communication and quantum entanglement. So if you, for example, this is insane, they found if you turn a particle in LA, it'll actually turn a subatomic particle in the exact same way in New York, and they mirror each other. Some scientists speculate this is because of quantum wormholes, that they're actually leaping through wormholes to the other part of the country. And if that's true, maybe we'll create macro wormholes and travel to distant parts of space. You never know. But be that as it may, atoms are so weird that not only can these subatomic particles that make them up exist in 2 places at the same time, but watch this. If you were to study an atom, you'll find that atoms are 99.9% empty space. So when people say, do you believe in materialism or spirituality? Do you believe that in science or faith? I'm like, how could you possibly divide the two between secular and sacred? Here's what I mean. It's a holistic reality. If atoms are 99.9% empty space, what's holding the whole thing together? The book of Colossians says, in the Lord all things consist. He is that invisible glue-on that's holding all things together. So the reality is if atoms are 99.9% empty space, what is this thing? Your chair you're sitting on, it looks solid, but that's an illusion. What it is it's a snow flurry of particles bouncing off each other at such rapid rates that it looks solid to you, but you're sitting on mostly empty space. You're mostly empty space. You're like, I believe it, my wife, empty space. Joking, not about the stats, but 99.9% empty space. Now, we know this not only by studying atoms, but also through mathematical models. Watch. If you look at the universe, I don't know if you're aware of this, but you know how the subatomic particles you're sitting on are moving? It's a snow flurry of particles bouncing off each other to give the appearance of solid being when really it's an illusion. Not only is the planet Earth that you're on moving, but also the universe itself is in motion. This is called galactic dispersal. As we speak, all the galaxies are moving away from all the other galaxies at the same time. This creates what astronomers call redshift. Now, what redshift is you can tell by light waves how far away galaxies are from Earth. For example, if you hear an ambulance and you hear the fading cacophony of its sirens, you can tell roughly how far away an ambulance is based on the sound of its sirens. By the fading sound, you can tell basically how far away it is. In the same way, not using sound waves, but light waves, redshift, we can tell how far away galaxies are by the shift of their light waves. And this is what we found, that if you run the mathematical model of galactic dispersal backwards, then what happens is if you run this mathematical model many, many, many years into the past, the universe converges into a space the size of a sugar cube that they call infinity. A sugar cube of infinite density where all the fundamental four forces of physics, electromagnetism, gravity, the strong and weak nuclear forces, all existed within the sugar cube space. Time and space were the same thing, energy and matter were the same thing, and watch this. Astrophysicists tell us there probably wasn't even time as we know it in this initial singularity. The clock wasn't ticking, nor was it not ticking. It was this infinite point of creative possibilities containing infinity within itself, and then it exploded and everything came into existence. Correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't that what Genesis 1:1 just told us? Like God explodes everything into creative existence as infinity, the potential for infinite creativity. And then what was birthed from this was what was called the Higgs Field. This wasn't discovered until Albert Einstein. He's the one who discovered this. You see, wait, if atoms are 99.9% empty space, take all the empty space out of all the atoms in the universe fits inside a sugar cube, then how do we accrue mass at all as we're swirling particles existing in time and space? Here's how. Watch this. We rub up against what's called a Higgs field, which Albert Einstein discovered is a universal force field that is everywhere, against which our body's particles slow down from light speed, create quantum drag, and therefore accrue matter and mass. So we have our body because we rub up against this omnipresent force field called the Higgs field, in which, let's use the words of Paul, we live and move and have our being. So there's this universal force field that gives us existence. Correct me if I'm wrong. That sounds a lot like God to me. Amazing, amazing stuff. But not only is this God so incredibly detailed in that he could create these tiny atoms, but it's what these atoms do that's so bizarre. They're disobeying the laws of physics. They're everywhere and nowhere, omnipresent, two places at the same time, cloud of possibilities, quantum leaping, teleportation, communication with no signal, telekinesis, telepathy. All these practices are actually happening on a subatomic level. Now, some of you, as much as you're tracking with me, I told you this is going to be a different message. But as much as you're tracking with me, you might say, Ben, this doesn't sound possible. Like you have to turn it 360 degrees twice to face the front. Like that doesn't make any sense. That's because we're so used to Isaac Newton's laws of physics where he said everything goes according to law and order, but that's because they didn't discover the microscope back then. They didn't even know what atoms were back then. So when we discovered the microscope, it pulled the rug out from Newtonian physics, and suddenly we're in Hogwarts, you muggle. We're passing through the wardrobe. We're like in Narnia. We're like, what, is that Mr. Tumnus hopping around like a fawn? This thing is miraculous. Niels Bohr, I'm so passionate about this. I just wanted everybody to get this. Niels Bohr, the famous quantum physicist, said, if you are not outraged upon hearing about quantum theory, you don't know what's being said. It's like, this science is insane. It pulls the rug out from Newtonian physics and law and order. Werner Heisenberg, the quantum physicist who discovered the uncertainty principle that you cannot predict. Actually, Z, we'll wait till the end. I'm so sorry. That was actually really smooth. I always tell her to come up at a certain mark, but Z, we're going a little bit longer tonight. I don't want to make your fingers bleed as you tickle the ivories. Can we give Z a big round of applause for being awesome? But Z, next week, that's your cue. That's your cue next week. Okay. Werner Heisenberg. That was actually super cool. You like slid, Narnia vibes on the ice, Snowland. Okay, here we go. Werner Heisenberg, the uncertainty principle. This quantum physicist discovered, watch, that you cannot predict both the position and momentum of a quantum particle simultaneously, the uncertainty principle. Werner Heisenberg said, the first sip of the natural sciences will make an atheist out of you. But God is waiting for you at the bottom of the glass. That's why people go to college. Parents are like, why do my kids go to college and become atheists? Because they don't know anything. They get the first sip of the natural sciences, like, whoa, I must be an atheist. Then they keep studying quantum mechanics, astrophysics, electromagnetism, the strong and weak nuclear forces, gravity. They go a little deeper and they're like, oh, God was waiting for me at the bottom of the glass, and they come back to faith later. If a parent raises up his child in the way he should go, and then he will not depart, Proverbs says. So try to skip a few steps with me tonight and believe in God now. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, you can skip a lot of steps of despair if you'll get this knowledge, like going after it like rubies, wisdom like great treasures, as the book of Proverbs teaches us. Ben Courson here. Thank you so much for watching my new YouTube channel. Make sure to smash that like and subscribe button, share this video with all your friends, and hit that bell so you're notified every time a new video comes out. May the hope be with you.